Hi, this is Jason, and this is the companion video to the one where I show how I make my world famous stew. What you're looking at now is my cutting board, because today what we're going to do is talk about how I prepare all the vegetables that I use in that stew. So this is more like a tour of the tools I use and how I actually do these things. So here goes. The first tools I want to talk about are these things called the Magic Trio Peeler set. I saw these online, I bought the stupid things, and they're not stupid, they actually work really well. There are these three little devices. They take the place of, the peelers that we used to use, that I used to use. These three have, these two are actually the ones I'm going to use today. This one is an interesting one because it's mainly meant for shredding things. Like, for instance, you can use all of these to do strips of cheese, but if you use this one, this is Swiss cheese. If you do this, am I doing this right? If you do this, it's going to do, see what happens? Becomes like Julienne cheese. We're not going to use that today, but this isn't going to go to waste. Yummy. So I just want to mention that. That's what the purpose of this one is. I'm going to put that aside and I'm not going to use it. Now, these things you can get online. I don't make any commission on this, but this company seems to be reliable. It's a Chinese company, and $2.97 plus nothing for shipping almost. So that's it. So here we go. I cut and peel a lot of the vegetables. So I'm going to start with these peeling ones. Now, even though I'm throwing the peels away, I still wash the vegetables in my other sink here. Use one of these things. We're going to do a sweet potato. Now, watch how easy it is to use these things. I use the little one. Either one will work. You can either push it or you can pull it. Watch how fast this goes. It's a little bumpy at sometimes. It takes a second swipe, but these little handy-dandy gadgets have saved me about 15 minutes worth of time preparing my stew, which I do once a week. I make a 6-quart pot full of them. Actually, that pot. And then every day microwave a bit for supper. Now, I put all of my cuttings, anything organic goes in one of these things. Old bag from the grocery store. And it's taken out nightly, and that way there are never any crawly things here because they never have anything to eat. So So that's how we do that. The only knives I use are this one. I love it because this serrated business, nothing ever sticks to it. This one is a great knife I've used for years. And this comes from IKEA in a 3-piece set for about $5. And it's one of the greatest little knives for cooking. So anyway. Now, this potato isn't, this potato, I could actually cut it along like this. But I found that on all of these types of vegetables, like potatoes and squash and all of that, it's a lot better to cut them the thickness that we're going to want the pieces. This one, it probably doesn't matter which way you do it, but that way, when we get to, oh, let me do it, I can't talk. Okay, and I have about 10 of these things, so each one of these vegetables ends up in there, and then when I'm making the stew, all I have to do is just dump them. Now, since this is a pretty skinny potato, we're just going to do that. I want these to end up as cubes. Probably should just move on, do the rest of these later. Okay, that's the sweet potatoes. Now, this skinny little carrot looking thing is a parsnip. I call it the mama root because when I first started cooking after I left home, I made my first vegetable stew. What's going on here? I still have some. This thing has been sitting in the refrigerator too long, so it's dried up a little. It shouldn't be this shriveled. Anyway, I made my first vegetable stew, and it just didn't taste like my mother's. So I called up Mom and said, "What am I doing wrong? It doesn't taste like yours." She said, "What are the ingredients you used?" And I told her, and she said, "You're missing 2 of the essential ones." I said, "What's that?" One of them was parsnip, and the other one was fresh dill. Coming from a Russian Jewish family, everything has dill in it. So I call parsnips the mama root from my mom. Now, cutting this one's a skinny little one. What I'll do with this, square up these ends, take them off, and then let's go down the middle. Like so, and then I can cut it up and it comes up in little pieces I want. This doesn't have to be big cubes because this is mainly going in for seasoning right after I do the onions and the garlic and the chilies and all of that. So and these I hope this isn't boring to you. Maybe I should sing when I'm doing this. Nah, I won't do that. Okay. So, it's only about 85 in here, and I have to keep the air conditioner off. Otherwise, you won't hear anything but a big hum. Hum. Okay, next. By the way, if you live in LA or in Southern California, we got these things called the 99 cents only store, which now ought to be called the 99 cents sort of store, because they're pushing the envelope and have $1.99 and $2.99 depending on what it is. But almost all my vegetables, they have fresh vegetables every single day. So almost all my vegetables come from the 99 cent store. I don't know if I have to peel these, but I always do. Probably don't need to peel these. This is summer squash, yellow squash, yellow looking zucchini. And at the 99 cent store, 3 of these cost, you guessed it, 99 cents. So with this, since it's no resistance, I'm just going to go like that. With another plate. These are good raw too. Actually, I'm going to use 2 of these, but you're just going to see me cut up 1. Normally I put butternut squash in 2, except I couldn't find any that were small enough. This time of the year they're gigundous and a bit pricey, so we're not going to be using butternut squash. I definitely have to peel, and those are always a pain to do. But with this magic peeler, it's also a nothing job. Really. Now, celery. Amazing value. $1.99. It was for two heads of celery, pretty much cleaned up. So what I'm going to do, take one of these, because I'm using celery for seasoning. I'm basically going to use all of the leaves. Wash this. And get rid of the ends. And then, now if I was going to use celery for a salad, I would break this here somehow, and then I would peel it back and get all the stringiness out. But since I'm going to be chopping this up, there's no need to do that. Not quite there. If you hear a plane in the background, I guess I didn't time this right. I'm on the takeoff path of the Burbank Airport. So that plane you might hear in the background is Southwest Airlines going somewhere. I know this might be boring, but if you're still watching me, it's because you need to know how to cook in the kitchen. And a lot of people, I find, especially new people to housing and new people to living on their own, basically don't know this stuff, and as I didn't when I first started out. So watching the way I'm actually cutting things probably is pretty good information. Now these things are called CHAOYTE squash. I guess that's coyote. Chayote. Anyway. They look like this. If they're starting to get a little ripe at this end, you'll see like a white tongue starting to stick out. Probably better if you're cooking with these to use it like this. If you actually wanted to grow this, you would let that tongue stick out and then put it about that much in soil, and it will grow a vine that will take over your house. I tried that once. Unfortunately, the spider mites in my yard ended up winning that battle. Okay, this I'm going to have to peel. And again, on these it's really difficult when you don't have this magic peeler. This thing though, it's a real simple process. The bigger ones are a little more crinkly. They're even harder to get out with a regular peeler. By the way, you notice I'm wearing gloves. When wearing gloves, if I should happen to catch myself, I'm going to catch the glove, not take off the top layer of skin. But I'm always keeping my hands out of reach. When cutting, like you're going to see when I cut the inside of this, it's real important because this vegetable really is slippery and it's not very and it's soft. So by the way, if I was cooking on a regular basis and not just once a week, I would take all of these clippings and all of these things I'm pulling off here, skins, I put them in a cloth, like a, what do you call that stuff? Cheesecloth bag, and then boil the hell out of it and make soups, vegetable soup stock. So now, right where this thing is, We're going to cut this in half. And behold, there's the pit, which we want to get rid of. Here's where I use this knife. Now watch. Keeping my hand out of the way, because I could punch through. I'm going to go in at an angle, and then I'm just going to rotate this around, keeping my hand behind the knife blade and the pit. And there's some skin in here too. So do the same thing on this side. I don't think you're going to find this. When I first discovered these things, I went and looked at all the videos. I never saw anyone on those videos doing what I'm doing now. So this is information you're going to get no place else but from me. Aren't you lucky? So, and then this is a simple operation. Again, my hand's behind the blade here. This could actually slip. I don't want that to happen. I like my hands. I protect them. This provides a little bit of crispness and sort of a burst of, when in the stew, sort of a little burst of crispness and juice, because these don't ever get really soft. It's getting hot in here. Next, what I do, broccoli. Now, broccoli, I happen to get, these are just broccoli crowns, otherwise there would be a long stem on them. Wash them a bit. I need extra life. Nah. We'll do that. Use my new ring light. Okay. So broccoli, I'm really going to use just the crown, I'm going to do two things with this. I'm going to use these, the flowerette, whatever you want to call them. But I'm also going to use what's left of the stem. If I had a long stem, I'd do more. To make my life easy, I'm just going to cut right here, because that's what I'm interested in. We're not throwing these away. You'll see what I'll do with them in a minute. Now, I don't want them this big, so I'm just going to cut them up. want them all to be about bite size. I started out really cooking Chinese food, and since you don't have knives at the table, everything needs to be bite size. Makes sense to me. I hate when people give me salads where I have to cut it in the bowl. I chop lettuce up too. For that matter, I chop spaghetti up. Used to eat in an Italian restaurant in Ithaca, New York, when I was going to school, and the owner always used to criticize me for chopping up my spaghetti. And his wife, who was as Italian as he was, said, "Don't pay any attention to him. I chop my spaghetti up too." Okay. Now, what we do with these is with another little tool. This is one of the greatest little knives in the world. See, it says U.S. Genuine canteen kit knife from the military. Probably about as old as I am. That means it's about 10 years old. It's so thin it's like a machete blade. It's not very sharp, except it slices through everything. It's great. I use this probably more than anything else. I use it when I'm spreading stuff, mayonnaise or Miracle Whip or butter or jellies. Okay, so with this, what I'm going to do, most people throw this away, which is pretty dumb because they bought it, paid by the pound usually, and all you have to do is take this tough skin off. Some of them peel easier than others. This one's not bad. I'm not going to really get most of it off, but if you have a big long stem, you know, if you want to get real fancy, you can get in here and do these, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to get rid of these. So you have this. If it was a long stem, you'd have a lot. I'm going to chop these up. Now, this, if you sort of chop it in little smaller pieces, you can put this in a salad raw, and your guests are going to wonder what the hell it is because it's crunchy. They're going to think it's jicama. You'll never guess it's broccoli. There's not much here. Normally, I would have a lot. But don't disregard the, some things that we do just because we've always done it, like get rid of this and just use the flowets. When we're buying this, might as well use it, and by the way, it's pretty tasty. Now this I'm just going to throw into the stew. All right, let me get rid of all of that. And next is going to be cauliflower. It's nice to have a double sink. Next is going to be cauliflower. People just turn up their nose when they hear that most of these vegetables. The only thing I don't get at the 99-cent store is the parsnips because they don't have it. But even all the chilies, you can get a pound worth of jalapenos for $1. I paid almost that much for the two I'm using at Ralph's or Kruger's, where you happen to be, because I didn't need a pound of jalapenos. So when you have cauliflower, it comes like this. I chose this one because there's very little, you can choose it right and you use it quick. You see how it's starting to get little bits of I guess it's a mold of some sort. It's edible, doesn't look good, so you can't see this, but I'm just slicing them off. These are just starting, but I washed the vegetables. Okay, now, the easy way to deal with this guy is figure out where the top of the vegetables are. The top of the flour. And stick it in like you're going to go for the heart. And then rotate all the way around. If you do it right, yay! See it? And if you do it a little lower, this part starts to come apart. Isn't that quick? Done. Now, I need a bigger bowl. With this, we can now break these apart and then chop them up. Tried cooking some of these leaves that didn't turn out well, so I don't use them anymore. Okay. So here, I'd rather not have these to deal with, so I chop them off. Something other than throwing in a stew, I'd be more careful with how I slice these so the flowers would stay together, but I'm just putting in the stew, so it doesn't matter. I'm just looking for size more than anything else. By the way, these pieces I cut off aren't going to go to waste. They're going to go in the stew too. But this makes it easier to do it this way than to have to deal with them when I'm chopping the rest of this up. I don't know if you've ever eaten it, but raw cauliflower is a treat. I would sample it now, except you're probably going to crunch in the microphone for the rest of the time. Couldn't resist. All right. Once again, I'm cutting way in. Now, I would deal with that normally, but I know how much I'm cutting here, and I'm going to end up, as usual, overfilling the pot, so I'm not going to worry about not getting every little piece of this. So, all of these, cut them to make them a little more. And that was quick, I think. So that's a pretty good bunch of cauliflower. Now, let's deal with peppers. And talked about my 99 cents more. These are all of 59 cents a piece, where red pepper in the regular stores is $2.50 a piece, or a pound. So with peppers, with this knife, I just go around right in where the, and I'll cut all the way around. Pull this out. Done. Isn't that good? Get rid of the ends. We're not going to get rid of them. And then these are fairly big cubes. I think they're called squares. So I'm running out of plates. I also have a yellow pepper. I think I'm going to have too much, so we're not going to cut that up now. Sweet. Notice how nothing sticks to this. Great invention. I've never seen them again since I bought a whole set of these ones. Okay. That's the red peppers. Now, these are Pasilla chilies. These vary from tasting like a green pepper to being slightly spicy, so I usually sample a piece of them to know how many I'm putting in. But that's what Pasilla, P-A-S-I-L-L-A, 2 pounds for $1. At the 99-cent store. These have been in since my last stew, so they're getting a little crinkly here. Meaning they're losing a lot of they're getting dehydrated basically. So I've grown these. Just take these and put them out in the garden. Now with these, let me taste this. Okay, not too spicy. I put these in like they were green peppers. I make squares, and what happens in the stew with these is that it's a green pepper with a slight bit of kick, so it's sort of interesting in the stew. Let these go I have one bowl that just has chilies in it, because when I'm cooking, as you'll see on the other video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stir fry the onions, then I'm going to put in these chilies, these and the jalapenos. Let's see how this one is. This one's pretty mild too. If I don't watch how mild these are, I'm going to end up with a stew that's hotter than I want when I put the jalapenos in. So that's why I test each one of these, because they just don't, they're not consistent. You know, with chilies, what happens is that the longer they're ripening, the hotter they get. That's why, and when they start to get red, what we call chipotle, I believe, is nothing more than a very ripe jalapeno. It gets hotter and it gets red. They all do. Okay, so this is it. I didn't just this one. The way these are, because they're pretty mild, I actually cut these up in a raw salad because they're a real nice little crunchy, slightly hot surprise in the salad. It's pasilla. They're actually used, I believe, in Mexican cooking. They become chili rellenos. They get stuffed with cheese. Okay, so now the jalapenos. Now these are jalapeno, nacho jalapeno. Jalapenos. That's a pretty big mother. I'm not going to taste these. I know what they taste like. Two ways of doing these. You can either just go all the way around with a little knife like this, and then cut down like so, and remove the whole thing in one piece, if I did it right. I don't mind getting seeds into the stew because that's just going to make it a little better. Or the easier way is just cut it in half, and then it's only attached to the outside skin in about 2 places, so just go around the outside and get rid of it. I like this rig. What I'm doing, I bought this interesting deal on the internet. You can tell I'm a gadget freak. Mr. Gadget. Now, jalapenos, you notice I'm cutting these guys differently. I'm sort of cutting them in strings, because that way if people who are eating the stew don't particularly want something, although after you boil the hell out of these, they're not anywhere near as hot as they are right now. But for people who really don't want to have to deal with jalapenos, they can get them. They know that this is going to be the hot stuff. All the very hot chilies get stringy in my salads or in my stews. And I don't chop them in little pieces so people can actually get them out of there. And I also make them in about 1-inch pieces so they're easy to get out. All right. Next, what do we have next? Oh, this looks like a banana. Well, it is a banana, but not a regular banana. This is what's called a macho banana, or platinos macho. Why? Because they're big. Now, when they're green, they're really not ripe enough to do anything. When they get ugly and black and ugly, that's when when they're getting real sweet. For a stew, I found this is about it. It's just sort of soft. If it gets any softer than this, what ends up happening is it's got a lot of sugar and a lot of alcohol in it. It gives the stew a strange taste. So I cut it in half like that, and then I get it away from the skin. This is a less work for mother routine. You see, this is starting to get mushy, which means it's a bit more ripe than I would normally want. I think this is still okay. Then I'm quartering it, pretty much. And now what I'm going to do while it's still in the skin is I'm going to chop it into the size I want. And I'm not going to put it in a plate when I'm ready to use it. I'm just going to take this and go, whoop. Yeah, this one's still okay. I smelled it because you can tell when they're getting too ripe. It smells like you're in a banana liqueur. Okay, so there's that. Portobello mushrooms. By the way, the 99-cent store doesn't give me any commission for this, but portobello. This is $1. $2.50 a pound anyplace else. It's 8 ounces, so I don't know what that is. Now with these, if there was a lot of stem, I would take it out and chop it up separately, but this one doesn't have a lot. Portobellos are really good because there are a lot of recipes where this can be a meat substitute. Because they've got a lot of meaty substance to them. You notice I use this knife as a spatula in a way. All around, I love this knife. I'm not sure what it's called. Maybe it's a semi-boning knife or something, but so that's the mushrooms. And now, 2 things left. I'm going to do one. I would normally do these in opposite order, except if I do the onions now, not being able to put the fan on, I'm going to die here or tear myself to death. So what I'm going to do now, the only non-fresh thing I use in my stews is whole peeled plum tomatoes. Now I've already washed the top here. Well, someplace I heard that if you don't wash the top of cans, they sit in storage and animals like rats do all sorts of strange things on them. And if that gets into your, like especially on sodas, if you then drink the soda without washing the top off, you can end up with whatever the little bit of poison is sitting there. Okay. Don't throw this out because I'm going to fill this with water, and that's going to be the water that I add when I'm cooking the stew. Now, here, this is why gloves are good, and this knife it's sort of sharp, but not really sharp. This is going to seem dangerous, but with gloves on, this is so soft. I'm not cutting, I'm just pushing. And I'm able to cut these up, just pushing against my hand. If I was to cut, I'm just going to cut into the glove. Never happened. But you have to know your knives, because I wouldn't do this with one of these razor sharp knives. And I don't do this because that will cut. I'm having to do a little bit here. I'm being careful. This one's a little tough. It's pretty tough skin. Dump it. Here, watch it squirts. What's nice about having gloves on too, you can play in the mud without getting dirty. These gloves come from Costco. You can get 200 of these for like less than $20. I use them for everything. I change the oil in the car with them, not with this set, or I'm about to plant some sweet potatoes after I finish this out in my garden, and I'm going to use a set of them when I'm doing that. I think we're done. It wasn't that simple. Okay, now put this aside, get rid of the, now onions. I really don't want to do this without the fan, but I will, just for you guys. Wash them off. There are two. I didn't realize when I picked them, this one's a double onion. It makes it a little different to do, but with onions, sorry for the noise, with onions, I chop the ends off, but I have an easy way of skinning them. Take your knife and just slice in like that. Take the top layer of onion, so you're going to lose a layer. Big deal, but it's going to save a lot of time. Because dealing with skins, you're always chasing little pieces. Done. Isn't that great? Onion is done. Now something's wrong on the inside of this one. Yeah. They've been sitting here too long. Okay. So now, two ways you can do this. Cut like this, and then dum-dum-dum, and do this. Recently, I've been doing this first, and then cutting like that. And there it is, done. And that way, the size you want is controlled totally. I'm going to do the same with this one. Did I wash it? Washing these, by the way, makes this outside skin less staticky. There's a double one. So, all right. So that's one. Well, it wasn't too bad. Okay, so you got the idea. This is a narrow one. Okay. And with that, just look around here and see if I missed anything. Oh, carrots. I take the carrots out of the thing, put them in this, makes it easier. Without the carrots, sort of a bit more carbs than I normally eat, but in a stew, they add a little bit of sweetness, as does the platinos macho, banana, and the sweet potatoes to balance off the jalapenos and the chilies. And so, that, my friends, is the whole deal. Now, it's one other tool as I look through my kitchen here. We're not going to use it, but it's a handy thing to have. When you make spaghetti or anything where you have to pour water out of a pot, this guy makes a lot of sense. Because all you have to do, if this was a pot, is go like that and then pour. You don't need a colander, you don't need anything else. Rinse it off, done. So, I think that's the tour, and I think that's it. And if this interests you, then go to the other video, which shows how I put all this together in a stew. And that's it. And let's hope this all works.